Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a great week. Week number 3 for our Education 380 or 500 class. Work so far has been great. The websites, I'm pushing through them. I will try to have those graded by early next week. I'm recording this on September 3rd. If I'm really productive this weekend, I will try to have everything up by Sunday, but usually I have everything done by the early part of the week. A lot of things are rolling in now that the semester started, but that's not your problem. That's mine. So with all that being said, what we're going to do today is we're going to dive into a little bit of Google Classroom. This is something obviously very, very important right now. Even with our current global situation, there was a lot of schools making the movement towards Google Classroom and using it as a tool in their classrooms. It's something that I think even after the pandemic, you're going to see a lot more of. So with that being said, if you are in Washington County and I believe Jefferson County, off the top of my head, you definitely want to get familiar with Google Classroom. It's not a bad tool. I used it a little bit at one of my schools for a few years, so I've a little bit of familiarity with it. It's not too hard to use. If you are in Berkeley or Frederick County, Maryland, I think they're still doing the Schoology, but don't sweat that. I think it's important to know Google, and there could always be a switch, and it's an important skill to know. I will also add this little caveat so I don't forget. Some of you have also sent already completed Apple certifications. Fantastic. It's great to see and submitted them. Don't forget the Google Level 1 is also something else you can do. A lot of secondary education, a lot of the secondary programs, even if they have Apple in elementary, like the Google in the secondary, that's not a hard, fast rule. It just seems to kind of gravitate that way. So it might be something to explore if you are in secondary ed. Uh, but there's nothing wrong with doing Apple. I will be the first to admit I'm more of an Apple person than anything. It's what I use at home. It's what I'm recording this on. But enough about me. Just don't forget about your certifications. And since we're doing Google, I thought I'd mention to check out that certification if you haven't done yours already or got to working on it. If I go too fast, if I'm talking a little quick while I'm recording, feel free to contact me with any questions. It seems like everyone has been really good about doing that. And forgive any goof ups or errors in this video. I will also always add this disclaimer because I am recording, attempting in one take like I would in a class, because if not, I will stop and go. So why don't I share my screen and we'll start talking a little bit about Google Classroom. All righty, as you can see, I'm just going to go right to our Sakai page. I'm going to just start from home. Okay. Don't forget to check for any announcements or any things that come up. There are any emails are just up there just in case. But with that being said, oh, I want to add this. I saw this here. If you are a graduate student, please, graduate students only, make sure you check out the literature review. I know I sent you an email that it was posted, but it is down there at the very bottom. If you are an undergraduate, if you are in the 380 class, you do not need to worry about that. If you are in the 500 class, please check this out and email with any questions. So let's go. Sorry, hiccup. All right, now, not that you care. Here we go. All right, this week, what are we going to do? We are going to do Google Classroom. We're going to talk about HyperDocs, which sounds very fancy. It's actually not that bad. We are also going to talk about Quizlet. I do not have Quizlet on the syllabus, but I like to share a little bit with it because you can easily add it into Google Classrooms, and a lot of people like to use it. Being a social studies person, it was something that I used a lot, especially when I did middle school history bowl and things like that. So Quizlet. And actually, just because you did the readings, the new policies for the future, I'm not going to dive into that too much. That's just your 21st century learning. One thing I do want you to kind of notice when you read that article, or it's more of an interview, just note some of the things she's saying. I know it's from the, about 10 years ago now, but she's still pointing out a lot of things that you need to think about when you're posting up on the discussion board, such as, how we assess. We need to vary that in some capacities. And I thought that actually connected pretty well with Google Classroom, because a lot of assessments and a lot of things that are being turned in the way we're approaching classrooms are going to be, they're technology based. We're going less and less paper. So anyway, I'm kind of digressing, but those are our topics. Reading, I mentioned that's your new policies for the future. There is a discussion board on that. What you need to review this week, the lecture. If you're unfamiliar with Google Classroom, I'll show this at the very end. I did put a video up that's a little more step-by-step than what I'm going to do, but I'm just going to kind of cruise through and kind of show you how I do it and kind of add some tidbits to it. Your assignments, blog 2, would you use Google Classroom? Imagine, let me add this caveat also. I know if you get hired somewhere, you might be mandated to use Google Classroom. Think about it in terms of if it wasn't mandated, would you use it as a tool or not? Some people really like it. Your discussion 2, which is related to your readings in 21st century. And of course, you're going to have to create a Google Classroom, and we'll go over the guidelines with that at the very end. So with that being said, I am going to go ahead and click our Google Classroom stuff. If you click Google Classroom, you will see there's a video that is up. That's a tutorial in Google Classroom. Still should be pretty up to date. I know they tinker around with Google Classroom. If there's something on there that doesn't make sense, though, again, just contact me. If you need it, some people may not, you may not need it. Please make sure you have a Google account. You will need to do that. And when you share your Google Classrooms with me, you should be able to share it with my Shepherd email. If I cannot open it for some quirky reason, I may email you back and give you my Gmail address, which is no big deal. I created it for the school, but sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I think it depends on the settings that the class is sent on, but that's neither here nor there. Just make sure that you have a Google Classroom account to create your classroom. There's also a link here that if you want to do any of the add-ons, I'm going to click this and probably do the cart before the horse a little bit. But Google Classroom is something where you can add so much to it. These are just a few things that you can embed on Google Classroom. There's a ton of other things we're going to talk about in this class, like Nearpod. I think you can embed in Google Classroom, and Pear Deck, and Quizlet I'm going to talk about today. You can embed in Google Classroom. It's a pretty simple but pretty useful platform in my opinion. So anyway, that's a link if you're interested. And this is what we're going to need to look at today. So I'm going to go ahead and open that file. I think I actually have it here. Sorry, I am talking to myself. There we go. Alrighty. And I'll put my little face up there, or big face. There we go. Alrighty. Google Classroom and Quizlet. This is just an instructional video, but I'm going to add some things in here. All right. Why would you use Google Classroom? Well, one, now this was actually made a little bit pre-pandemic, but it's might be mandated now. But other than that, again, paperless communication. Many school systems use it, as I said, and I'm going to come back to the communication, and that's a very big 21st century learning type thing. We talked about websites last week. I liked websites, but I will say this. I like doing these the first week in case that's something you want to do in the future. Things like Google Classroom and Schoology, they kind of have eliminated the need for websites to a lot of people. One, because you have a space, you kind of have a home base, and that's kind of what I always thought my website was. But as these learning management systems like Google Classroom and Schoology come into play, you can do a lot of the communications. You'll see on Google Classroom, there is an announcement page. You can put things on there. Students can see it, parents can see it. You can get it out there. Of course, paper, I can't vouch for you. I have slowly started to make the movement towards trying to get less and less paper. Sakai is a great example. I like that everything is there. I don't have to dig for things. When I was a teacher, especially my first couple years, I'd always like, oh, do I have that paper? Do I not have that paper? Of course, eventually I made sure I had a nice filing system where I would have students put things in. Google Classroom eliminates the need for that. You can have them literally turn it in right on Google Classroom, and you have a record if they did it or not. You can get an email if they turned it in or not. You can search for that assignment very easily. I've had students turn things in or forward things to me in my Google account when I was at the school that I mentioned, and I would get an email. And if the student said, oh, I turned that in, I could verify that very easily if they did or didn't. And if they had done it, they would still have it in their Google account and they could re-forward it. So there's a lot of pluses to it. Again, I'm going to dive into these a little bit because of the HyperDocs aspect to it, but there are links to a lot of other Google type of things like Docs. You know, you can add quizzes in, slides, Google Slides is in there. And of course, you can create assignments, easy messages again for students. I'm going to jump ahead again a little bit, but Google Docs is an example of a HyperDoc. I'm going to make this just a clear definition because this is just how I think about it. A HyperDoc is basically something that multiple people can edit. So for example, if you're an English teacher, maybe you have a group of students that might have a doc and they can all work on aspects of it and edit it. Maybe they can do the writing process. Maybe one's looking for the content, one person's looking for the grammar, so on and so forth. So it's something that you can work multiple hands in, and you know, everyone can have it, you can share it. That's a HyperDoc. That's something the school systems have actually mentioned that they would like you all to be a little familiar with, and Google Docs is a perfect one. You're actually going to have to include a HyperDoc or a Docs into your Google Classroom for this assignment. Google Slides, to me, would also fall into that. That's something you can edit right on the spot. Multiple people can do it as long as they have shared access to it. So with all that being said, why use Google Classroom? 1, I guess environmental. 2, communications. 3, because you might have to. So those are all good reasons to me. If you are not familiar with where to find Google Classroom, and I'm going to probably go out on the live interweb and show you this stuff here in a few minutes. But when you get to the Google homepage and you hit that little checkerboardy thing right there, you will see one of the options is Google Classroom. You're actually just going to go to that and you're going to click it. And whoops. Maybe I'll click. Why is it not changing for me? Whoops. There we go. Sorry. I'm going to go back. As you can see, you're going to hit that Google little checkerboard. You're going to click Google Classroom. There we go. And you will create your website, your site. And I'm going to go out and show you that here in a minute. But once you create your site, there's going to be a lot of things that you'll see. You'll see a stream, which is where you can communicate with your class. You can put announcements there. You can have classwork, which you can turn in your assignments. You can see who is registered for your class, and of course the grades. So it's all right there. It's home base, and you can pretty this stuff up. I'm not going to get into that right now, but you can definitely do that. As you can see, I just made something there. Welcome 800 and 500. It's a test class that I was just fiddling around with the other day, and you can see I've done other ones. Welcome to test class world history. You know, your students will see it. And you can post it right there and they will see it. Classwork is very easy. And again, I'm going to step out and show you how to do this in a minute, but you can just click classwork and that's where you make your assignments and you hit that create button. Sometimes Google does updates and that create button seems to float in different spots, but wherever you see a plus sign, that is where you can hit it and you can add things. You can attach things. As it says there, I don't know if you can read that very well, but it says create assignments and questions. Use topics to organize classwork into modules or units, and you know, and such. You can add things to the calendar, but we'll add it. And again, I'm going to go out here in a minute. And there's the assignment. You'll have a little window that'll pop up, and you can embed different things. You can embed videos. There's little YouTube. I'm sure everyone in this class is familiar with YouTube. That's your Google Drive. I will show you that in a minute. And that's just a normal little attachment, a paperclip. And you can add those things. You can, as part of the assignment, you can add instructions. You can invite students. I would imagine, I'm not for sure how the school districts are doing this. I don't know if you have to add the students in yourself or not. I would hope not, but if you do, it's very easy to do. You just go to people and you type in their address. I know schools have gotten very fancy because they have G Suite and things like that, and usually they'll be already in there. But just in case, if you do need to add someone for some weird reason, you just hit people and invite students, and you would put their school, probably k12.wvu.us type email in there. I'll come back to Google Classroom. Another thing I just wanted to share, you have nothing, I used to make people do this, and if you have some and you want to embed it and really soup up your Google Classroom, go for it. But another thing that I used to use a lot was Quizlet. And Quizlet kind of lends itself to Google Classroom pretty easily because you can just embed things. You can make Quizlets and have students review information. Actually, it's probably beneficial as students today in classes that you're all in, especially if you're in a content-specific class, if you need to memorize some things in English, social studies, science, and such. But Quizlet is something you might want to check out. As you can see, it has like a flashcard system, or you can do spelling tests, learn. My son and I use it all the time for him. He's just going into middle school, but we've used it in 4th and 5th grade pretty often. A lot of times we use it in the car to, review things. It's a good recall type things. Whoops. And then, as I said, it's a great review tool. I would check it out, and you can link it to your Google Classroom. It's not a requirement for the assignment that we're going to do this week, but you might want to do it just to kind of check it out and get used to working with Google Classroom, especially if you make a little Quizlet assignment. And you can go right in, and if you go to Quizlet, it'll tell you how to link it right in there. This PowerPoint is posted if you wanted. Kind of diverged a little bit there, I know, from Google Classroom, but I just wanted to make sure you knew about Quizlet. A lot of students really like it. Now, with that being said, I know I'm kind of babbling a little bit. I'm going to step out, and I'm going to go into Google. And you see there's my little checkerboard. And as you see, there are a ton of things here for Google if you're not familiar with it. There's my Google Docs, there's my Google Sheets, there's my Google Slides. Those are all hyperdocs. These are things that you can edit. So for example, I'm going to hit Docs. And if I want to create a new doc, I'm going to hit that. And making sure I'm in on mine, and yeah, my son has one too. If I wanted to do a doc, and I would just want to say, one of my favorite things to teach was actually world history. So it might be, what were the causes of the French Revolution? Oops. All right, so I got it. Yeah, I got it. So when I go in there, I've created this. It's going to save it, automatically saves. It's in there. And I haven't titled it yet. I'm going to go up here and just say it in my drive. Boom, it's there. I don't have to do anything else. So I have a document now in there. Now I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And of course I was a little silly because I closed that out. Actually, I did that on purpose, but I closed that out. I'm going to go right back to my Google. And if I go back to my docs that I blew right past, it should be in there. It should be in there. Oh, there it is. Yay. So there's my Google Docs. I'm going to come back to that. That is a hyperdoc. So what I could do is if I wanted to share that with other people, let me click that to pull it up. If I wanted to share it, I could type in other people's names on there on the share, and they would have access to it and they could edit it. So it's a good review tool. Actually, I was just telling some of my field placements, they were talking about how can I have students do field or group work if they have to be 6 feet apart in the classroom because they're starting to teach next week. And I told them, maybe use a hyperdoc where they're all spaced apart, but they can all work on the document at the same time. So, and you would just type in the people that you want to share it, but I am done. So that is Google there. Now, and of course you can share there, right, if you need to. Alrighty, I'm going back to this, and as you see, there's other things on here, your Gmail and such. Slides is very much like PowerPoint if you want to do anything. Hangouts is very popular now. I have to admit, I'm a little more of a Zoom person. I have not messed around too much with Google Hangout, but again, it's something that you might want to get familiar with if some school districts are doing it. I actually have something a little later this semester where I'm going to talk about Hangouts. I'm actually going to do a training myself in the next couple of weeks just so I'm a little more familiar with it. More of a Zoom guy, even before all this happened. It just is one of those things. But the main thing I want you to be familiar with right now are the docs as far as a hyper document. And if you want to check out slides, you can. I have a feeling you all have probably seen some of this, but again, very PowerPoint-y. There's one that I actually posted for you all on hyperdocs. That's right there. So it's on the website, and I'll show it to you here in a few minutes. Google Classroom. Now, we've created a doc. If you want, you just go to Google Classroom, and I'm assuming you have created a Google account. And as you can see, these are all students that have made classes before for me, but I'm not worried about any of them. I am going to create a class. Yes, and I have read all that. And my class name is 380 2020. Great. And it will sit there and it will do its thing. And it's thinking, thinking. I think I have something there. There it is. Magic. And just to kind of show you around a little bit, here's something there. I'm just totally spitballing this a little bit, but hello. And guess what? There's the message. If I want to do classwork, remember I told you about that little plus sign on the other one? You can hit that and you can create an assignment. You can add something, you can create something. You can add something from docs. You can add just a regular YouTube video. You do need to embed something. So as long as you do that, maybe you want your students to watch a video and respond to a question. So you would just literally click the YouTube and you would search something. Since it was on my mind, revolution. And there it is. And I'm going to add it. And guess what? It's embedded. That's it. And I might tell my students, provide provide 3 examples of causes. And I'm not going to do that. You want to attach your rubrics and all that. I'm not looking for you to do that. But that should be, whoops, French Revolution. I'll assign it. And it's just, as you can see, it's saving and it's there. The assignment's posted. That's it. That's one of the things that you have to do. You have a video in there, you have an assignment in there. It's awesome. I would also like you, and I'll go over the assignment here in a minute, but I would like you to go in and we'll do it this way. We'll do another one. You can do them both as assignments, that's fine. Create. Let's do add. We'll go to Google Drive. Now your drive is that little, like, I almost think it looks like a recycle symbol. But you go to your Google Drive, and probably because I just made it in Google Docs, my French Revolution one should be one of the first ones to show up. There it is. You will hit that. You will insert that. And again, essay on the French Revolution. And if I was going to be really mean, maybe we'll say in 100 paragraphs. Obviously, I would never do this to anyone. Describe the French Revolution and its causes. I'm doing this a little bit on the fly, but I think you'll get the point. And I'll sign it. There you go. Now there's other ways to do this. I'm asking you on the assignment to embed a video. You can even put those on the stream if you want, I believe. There you go. You can add anything like that. When I come back out to the assignment, just one thing to tell you. If you want to put the video on the announcements, that's fine. If you want to put the hyperdoc on the announcements, that's fine. You don't have to do it in an assignment. I'm basically, this is obviously, you know, a 1 week thing that we're doing, but Google Classroom is a pretty important thing to be somewhat familiar with, or at least know that you can navigate around it. So however you want to put it and where you want to put it is up to you. I'll check out your whole site when you send it to me. I would suggest, especially if you want to end up teaching in one of those counties like Washington or Jefferson County, maybe messing with this a little bit more. When we go out and look at the assignment here in a second, one thing that I want you to just kind of know is you have a bare minimum of things that I'm looking for. If you really want to jazz this thing up and add different things just to kind of get used to it, that is fine. Heck, if you think you're going to have a placement or what you're going to do, it might be something good to just kind of start to build a mock site. But again, that's Google Classroom. It's pretty straightforward. I don't think it's anything fancy or anything too complex. It's just something you want to be familiar with. And again, there's all your Google tools. We'll come back to that. Like I said, I think we're going to come back to Google Hangouts in a little bit. Google Earth's on here. You can embed that in there. Anything here you can easily embed to your Google Classroom. And like I say, you can actually pretty this up and such. One thing I should also show you, that's your class code. If I email you back, if I'm having problems opening it, I'm opening your class. I may ask you for your class code. That's it right there, as it simply says. And again, you can go up here and change your themes. Like I say, I'm a social studies person, so maybe I might go with that. And boom, now I have a globe and it's a little more social studies-y. That is Google Classroom. Now here's another big thing that you're probably more worried about than anything. What do I have to do this week? Well, as I said, you got your blog that you have to do on Google Classroom. You have to do your discussion. You have to make your Google Classroom site. I have posted it. Right there is where you can submit the link. You don't have to take a screenshot or anything. Just give me the class code. I'll go in and enroll in the class, or you can enroll me, either way. Here's what you have to do. And there's a little bit of saying of what I've said a million times. Google Classroom is a home base for creating and grading assignments and things like that. View the video on Google Classroom. I'm talking about this video right here, just so you have a little familiarity. If you want to view the one that goes into a little more depth on how to get around Google Classroom, that is also there. That is optional, but it's there to help. Make sure you have a Google account. Create your Google Classroom space. And in your space, you need to do the following. You need to post one announcement. You need to embed either an announcement or an assignment, or somewhere where I can locate it, a YouTube video. I don't care what it is in terms of it needs to relate to your class or your content. Create an assignment that is a hyperdoc. That would be your Google Classroom, your Google Doc. Or I didn't really show you too much. You can also use Google Slides. I had students when they would do group presentations, they would use Google Slides and they would all work on a specific thing. So since I'm on the French Revolution kick, maybe one person's working on Robespierre and another person's working on the beginnings of the French Revolution, and another person might be working on why Napoleon is a result of the French Revolution. So they all would have different slides that they were working on, and they could merge them all into one and work on that document at the same time. You could put a slide on there. That's a hyperdoc. You're going to create an assignment that's a hyperdoc from the Google Docs and post it. So you're going to have to create a small Google Doc form. Again, it doesn't have to be anything complex. It can be almost exactly what I did there. What are the causes of the French Revolution? It could be some sort of sign-up sheet. We are going to do presentations. Who do you want? Because all the students can actually go in there and sign up for their own thing. The only thing I will warn you is if they have access, they could take someone else's name off and put their own name there. I only know that from experience. So anyway, but if you give them access, they all have access to sign it and check things out and such. But anyway, that was a little bit of a mouthful. But put that hyperdoc on there. It can be a sign-up sheet, editing sheet, brainstorming activity, or an assignment. Send me the link. So what do you need to do? Google Classroom, embed a video, put in an announcement, create an assignment with a hyperdoc. Do those things, send me the code, you should be good to go. That, I believe, everyone, is week 3. Let me go back through and make sure I'm not forgetting anything for anyone. I think that is it. I hope everyone is actually getting something out of this. I know the website sometimes can be a little clunky, but I like doing it because I think it's a good thing where if you want to have students do it, it's a good thing. Like I say, I think things like Google Classroom and Schoology are starting to kind of phase it out a little bit, but and I would also recommend, like I say, if you got a little bit of time, this week's been a little rainy when I'm recording this, but if you have a rainy day and I'm sure you're just kind of goofing around, you might want to just kind of mess around with Google a little more than what, even our assignment is, just to get familiar with it. So with all that being said, I'm going to stop sharing. That's the work for the week. I hope everything's going well for everyone this semester. And again, if you need to see me, I know we were an online class before even the pandemic started. But feel free to stop by my office. Again, I am on campus. My assigned days are Mondays and Wednesdays, but I can make do if I have to come down on Tuesdays and Thursdays if I need to. Also, of course, Zoom's always an option. I have virtual office hours 10 to 11 on Tuesdays. Just fire me an email if you want to meet during those times. I have a Zoom room already ready. And that should do it. Like I say, work's been great so far. So I hope everyone's kind of hanging in there and we'll keep on pushing. So catch you later. Have a good weekend. Bye.